How do you react, Gina, to this latest poll that suggests Ben Carson is the guy Americans want to see in office right now?
Well, I think all due respect to Dr. Carson, and I am glad he's in the race, but I think that you can't take one poll in isolation. As you know, for example, the Real Clear Politics that takes the average of all the polls in the country still has Trump winning by leaps and bounds. And so I think you have to kind of take a wider look at all the polls.
Well, and
we
by the
need
way,
to be
the
careful
Reuters
not
poll,
to get too excited.
The Reuters poll also out today does have Donald Trump winning in that poll. So to your point, there are other polls suggesting other things. I guess I'm surprised that Ben Carson has come up from behind on Donald Trump as strong as he has. Can you explain that in any way, Gina?
I think that it's probably a little bit of a reaction to Trump. You know, Trump doesn't necessarily have that sort of genteel civility that a lot of conservatives really appreciate. The character aspect of a presidential candidate is important to a lot of voters, and they like the humility and things. And I think when they don't see that in Trump, maybe they're out there looking for that in somebody else. And I think that's okay. And I think that so far, you know, the conservatives in this race are having a very thoughtful process to the finish line. And I find it absolutely fascinating. I think what we can't lose sight of here is that the establishment candidates are not winning. And I think that is the first ever very exciting
moment. Let me get to something that is going to be a big issue on the campaign trail, because you get a lot of people out there that depend on Medicaid. Carson wants to get rid of Medicaid. This is something that Donald Trump highlighted as a problem for his campaign just this morning on Fox and Friends. Watch it.
We're going to bring jobs back to the country. We're going to make the country rich again, and we're going to be able to afford the entitlements. Because if I don't want to do that. I'm not cutting Social Security. You know, people are going to cut Social Security, cut Medicare.
You're going to grow a way out of it.
Carson wants to cut Medicare. I think that's the end of his campaign. But he wants to abolish. He wants to get rid of Medicare. To me, that's the end of his campaign. That's a program that actually works.
Okay, so Medicaid and Medicare, they are up for grabs. How much does that affect Ben Carson's candidacy, Gina?
Again, I think he's appealing to a conservative base that sees government as too big and intrusive in our lives. And if there's a way to privatize and still help people, then I think that's a good thing. And I've watched Trump sort of evolve on some of these issues because he is an official outsider. I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think that Trump will continue to evolve to see that maybe privatizing some of these things that don't need to have government interference might work in the long run.
You know what was interesting to me? According to this Reuters poll, when you look at what voters trust Donald Trump on the most, Gina, it happens to be the economy, which is important right now. That's the number one issue. Let's not forget, for Americans, they care about their economic status, their pocketbooks, and their future economically. Number two, dealing with foreign leaders and also nuclear weapons. These are the things that Americans trust him the most on. That should theoretically translate into some success at the voting booths.
Yeah, I absolutely think that you just take the basic issues, economic security, national security, and I think, and this is sort of more nuanced, but it's a constitutional awareness, a respect for the distance that government is supposed to have from our daily lives. And I think the candidate who comes out on top ultimately will have those three things succinctly in place: economic security, national security, and a respect for our constitutional governance, which means that government is out of our lives, not intrusive.
Gina, stick with me. I just want to remind everyone not to miss Fox Business's debate next week. I'm going to be joined